Welcome back to the 3C Media YouTube channel. My name is Craig Crash. Alongside me, as always, is Brandon Scott, otherwise known as B. Scott. We had the Super Bowl, so the natural thing to do is to preview the Super Bowl. The other Super Bowl, that is, the Super Bowl of racing, the Super Bowl of NASCAR.
Oh, NASCAR.
Yeah.
Not the Super Bowl of racing, just the Super Bowl of NASCAR.
Well, I think it's the only race that calls itself any sort of Super Bowl.
I don't know. Yeah,
Because
they do. It does. It
it's
considers it, but it's not the greatest. It's not the greatest spectacle in racing.
Right. No. The greatest spectacle in racing is the Grand Prix of Monaco. So I'm joking.
You shut your mouth when you're talking to me.
Yes, we are going to be previewing the Daytona 500 that's coming up tomorrow. It's going to be a fun race. It always is. We're past all the other stuff that precursed it, the Clash at the Coliseum, which what are we Clash at the Coliseum 2 Electric Boogaloo? What are we thinking about that? Or is that still is that going to be a yearly thing? Do we like it as a yearly thing? Yeah,
I don't. I really don't like it as a yearly thing. It's for me, the fact that you take a break for a concert in the middle of it, it's just, I don't know.
Well,
I guess I'm too much of a purist when it comes to racing. And I mean, I get you have to take a break because there's no pit stops in it. I get that. But I would rather try to if you want to do something special year after year to kind of kick off the season, let's look at other ways to do things. Let's go race at Coda. Let's go do a dirt race at Eldora. I mean, different things like that. But I think the LA thing is kind of, it's lost it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I'm with
you.
It
just doesn't fit the NASCAR vibe.
Well, I mean,
I know they're trying to expand the vibe, and I applaud them for that. But it's just like, man, I would rather see it go back the beginning of the season, kind of like all-star race at Daytona that they used to do. I'd rather go back to that than this.
Yeah, no, I'm with you because I mean the cool thing about it was the novelty, and so once it's not the first time like you've done it before, then it just kind of becomes another race. Yeah, I tuned in for a little bit of. I watched like the last little bit of the race. I think it was really if you're gonna do anything, at least make caution laps count. Maybe don't count them if it's in like the last 20 laps because that track's so small. But that was my one gripe from watching it this year. But yeah, I'm with you. I think. I like the idea of like moving it to other locations, like every year or doing something like that. Or do it once a year, or do it once in one location. Put it in like Las Vegas. Put it in like some place that you can, like some place that's actually designed for racing, and you can actually have kind of the racing that you're used to. One thing that I think would be really cool, and I don't know if it could be done. I mean, I don't know how easy or hard for it to do, but one thing I was thinking would be cool for like the All-Star race is do like I don't know if you can do like a day, have it be like a 2-day event, and like on day 1 it's you race on the Charlotte Oval, and day 2 you race on the Roval. I don't know if that's how easy or hard that would be to do, but yeah, I'm with you. I like the idea of shaking things up. It's why I like the Chicago street race idea, even though I know people don't like it, but I do think it's a good idea. You got to do things to spice things up. But yeah, I think Clash at the Coliseum has kind of lost its luster a little bit. But what hasn't lost its luster, obviously, is the race we're here to talk about, and that is the Daytona 500. We mentioned the greatest spectacle in racing. One thing that is cool, and I know you're a big fan of this because you're a big fan of this driver, is the fact that we have Conor Daly, attempting to qualify for the Great American Race. He's, of course, a beloved driver within the IndyCar community, and so it brings up a big question, which is, what IndyCar driver would you like to see attempt the Daytona 500? Like a different IndyCar driver, which one would you like to see race in the Daytona 500? And I have a few, and I've got a who I think could actually go win the race, and who I would just like to see run the race because it would be cool. From
Mhm.
the standpoint of just it would be cool. I want Scott Dixon. It's a racing video, so we have to mention Scott Dixon. It's what we have to do. It would be another notch in the belt of the greatest IndyCar driver in recent memory, joining Mario Andretti and AJ Foyt to win the Indy 500 and Daytona 500. So that would be really cool. I'd also like to see Marco Andretti, just because the Andrettis are racing royalty, kind of in both sports, not as much in NASCAR. But definitely, the Andrettis are well known because, of course, John was in NASCAR for a long time. So I think that would be cool to see Marco run the Daytona 500. As far as a driver, I think that could actually win. I would love to see Joseph Newgarden go toe to toe with these guys, especially because of his background growing up. I think he probably could have gone to either sport, but chose to go IndyCar. But I think it would be really cool to see Joseph Newgarden, because I think he would. I mean, of course, we've seen other IndyCar drivers that we thought would go toe to toe with some of these NASCAR guys before, Sam Hornish and the like. But I think
Hey, Tony
right,
Stewart and Robbie Gordon have to be the two that stand out the
the
most.
actual success stories, and everybody else just kind of. I mean, Juan Pablo but he was good pretty much anywhere. But Juan Pablo
Yeah.
had a good career.
Juan Pablo's most known for wrecking on a caution lap into the jet dryer at
That
Daytona.
is true.
So, I mean, yeah, Joseph Newgarden would be fun to watch. I mean, I got to look at just I'm thinking back of it. Yeah, Tony Stewart has got to be the. I mean,
He he kind of
he's won
stands
it.
alone.
He's a champion.
Right.
I mean, now he's an owner within NASCAR itself. Um, I think if you look at Tony Stewart's career, though, it was mostly NASCAR. He started off in IndyCar, way back. Man, that just seems so long ago. I remember meeting Tony Stewart outside of a Menards. I think it was like back in '96. I want to say it was the year that he ended up taking over the pole, being moved up on the pole when Scott Braden died in a practice crash. Who had the pole
Yeah.
that season? Um, but yeah, so for me, it's kind of interesting. I kind of want to look at like who's got some experience outside of open wheel that's more stock car like. Some of the guys that stand out to me for that, I mean, like you got Elio Castroneves and Simon Pagenaud. They both are successful IMSA drivers, so there's a little bit of that kind of power there, a little bit. But I'm not going to go with them because IMSA is more road course and not sheer horsepower, and it's a lot of more in line of open wheel in my mind. But I'm looking at like Scott McLaughlin. He comes from a sports car, supercar background in Australia, and I don't know why I think this, but I just kind of feel like that could translate the best to running at the Daytona 500. I don't. There's nothing you can replicate. Maybe running at Texas for IndyCar. To prepare you to run at Daytona. I mean, at least with Conor Daly trying to qualify for this year's Daytona 500 field, he's at least raced in the Xfinity Series before, not at Daytona, but he's been behind the wheel of a stock car at least. Um, so I mean, if I got to pick somebody that's not trying to, or I'd like to see it try to attempt it, Joseph Newgarden's a good pick just because he's one of those top American drivers. Colton Herta wouldn't be another bad one because Colton Herta is trying to lay his claim as one of the better race car drivers in the world. Trying to get into Formula One and everything. But I'm still going to stick with Scott McLaughlin and think it. I think he could come in and make some noise. I mean, he's already part of a team that does run in the Daytona 500, so it
Yeah.
does help there. So yeah, I'll go with Scott McLaughlin there. I think that'd be a good one.
And I like you that you threw out Elio Castroneves, because I was running through the list of like who all I would like to see, and I was like, I got to leave some for B Scott, and I was like, I know he's gonna go Elio there because he's your favorite. So I was like, I want to, because I do like the idea of him driving. As far and now I kind of want to reverse it a little bit. So, what NASCAR driver would you want to see race the Indy 500? And again, I've got two categories as far as cool and just and actually I think could win it. As far as cool, Kevin Harvick, former Brickyard winner, something I don't think that has been done, winning both the 500 and the 400. Because like
No,
running
it's
through,
never.
yeah, I was like Jimmy
I
Johnson would
mean,
have been the best
I
chance, or
I
Tony
think
Stewart, but
Tony Stewart was probably the closest,
right,
and we all thought Jimmy Johnson was really going to have something for the Indy
MVP,
500 last year, and it's like, which
yikes,
is probably why Jimmy Johnson's back in NASCAR this
yeah.
year.
I would like to see Kyle Busch since Kurt Busch ran it a
Yes.
while back, and I'd be cool if they ran together. I know Kurt Busch has got some injury stuff.
Oh, I think Kyle Busch would be amazing in an IndyCar.
Yeah, and then I'd also I I'd love to
This one
see
I agree with you.
Ross
I agree
Chastain.
100% with you on this one. This is the
Ross
driver that came to my mind too.
Ross Chastain, just put him in an Indy car. He's a wild card. Just let him go for it. I think that would be amazing to watch.
He's got no fear. He's
Yeah,
got no fear. I mean, he's
he
going to barrel that thing in well over 230 going into turn one.
he
He's going to
reminds
just
me a
put it.
lot of Takuma Sato. Like he just doesn't care. He's just
Yeah.
gonna force it in there. And as far as having a chance to win, aside from Kyle Larson, who does have plans in the future to run the Indy 500, I would love to see Chase Elliott.
Oh yeah.
I think he and Larson are the only two that I would think like, okay, these two have a realistic shot to win the race.
So I'm going to kind of go with a guy that hasn't been in NASCAR recently, but he's still racing. And he's doing a lot of dirt track racing right now. But he's a former NASCAR winner and he was racing in some of the top teams. You know, he raced for Hendrick and Ray Evernham. I'm going to go Casey Kane.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a driver. Like, I don't know. I feel like if Casey Kane had an opportunity to get behind the wheel of an Indy car, he would put that thing in qualify in the 33 and he could run really well because of experience he's gained now in on the dirt track. And I know it's like, oh, that doesn't always translate, but watch, I honestly believe Kyle Larson's going to come in and probably be more successful in an Indy car at the Indy 500 than Jimmy Johnson was.
oh yeah,
Um, but that's also Kyle Larson's another one of those drivers that he's just going to go out there and drive it. He's not going to overthink it. Um, but Casey Kane, I think would be a really good one. I think that's a name that's kind of popped around before a little bit. So let's get it. He's not racing in NASCAR right now. Another past guy that I think would be awesome to watch in IndyCar. But he's living the life outside of everything now. Carl Edwards.
mm-hmm.
I mean, talk about the fittest man in NASCAR. I mean, you have to be to complete the Indy 500, and Carl Edwards, I think, could be really fun. But like of the current guys, I mean, you picked all the good ones, like
Right.
Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, Kyle Busch. I wanted to say Joey Logano, but Joey Logano's a little bit too much of a hothead for me to get behind the wheel of an Indy car. I don't know. Yeah, it's really kind. I mean,
Like, cause I
I
thought
don't. I
like I don't know that I would want to see like Denny Hamlin. Like I don't know. Yeah, I
no
was like Martin Truex. No, like
no.
there's some guys that are successful on one, but I don't know that
Eric
I.
Jones maybe might be
Yeah.
one, but Kevin Harvick, just because the success Kevin Harvick has had at IMS would be really good to see. Especially on the oval. Kevin Harvick has been really, really good on the oval at IMS.
Hmm.
Um, I guess another former one that everybody would love to see, Jeff Gordon.
Oh yeah. I haven't been back to the track in a couple years. That would like I would find some sort of way to be at that one if he was there because that's my all-time favorite driver. So I would love to see
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I mean, when the news broke about Kyle Larson, I was extremely excited. I was like, that's going to be a really good fit. Um, and the fact that he's going with, yeah, Arrow McLaren
Hmm.
is even more exciting because that team's going to be dialed in regardless. So it's not like he's just jumping into some team. It's a team that's actually legitimately going to be dialed in. Um, so yeah, I'm going more of the guys from the past that aren't in the series anymore, but
I mean,
I
they'd
would,
still be a NASCAR. I mean, it'd still
yeah, I
be,
mean,
yeah,
Casey Kane, Carl Edwards, and Jeff Gordon. Give me those three, and I think either any of those three could be,
yeah.
yeah,
I like
they
it.
could run really well.
So let's go ahead and set our sights more towards this season. Before we get into the Daytona 500 and our predictions, I wanted to kind of look and do kind of an overview as far as like what excites us about the 2023 NASCAR season. What's a storyline and a driver? For me, the storyline here is Trackhouse Racing. Are they here to stay? They made their debut just 2 years ago. Whenever we talk about them, I want to hammer that home. Like, this is a team that, it's not like they're kind of like an off brand of another team or anything like that. Like, they made their debut 2 years ago. They had Daniel Suarez, who had one top five finish, four top tens, and finished 25th in points in 2021. Then in 2022, they had that breakout season. You had Ross Chastain, who joined the mix, which, like, isn't like that was like, oh, Kyle Busch moved to this team that, is kind of new and whatever. Like, it's not like Michael Jordan going out and getting, like, his drivers for, like, going and getting Bubba Wallace. Like, Ross Chastain wasn't a success story coming to a new team. He also had his struggles. He comes into Trackhouse Racing, this new team, and has this unbelievable year. He wins 2 races, top 15 or 15 top fives, 21 top tens. He was in the final four for the championship, and he finished his second in points. And
And he
like,
got a rule named after him.
exactly, yeah, like he literally, was breaking like setting new
He
rules
didn't
up.
break the rules.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he was
set
just,
new
yeah.
rules.
And then Suarez, I mean, still had a good year on his own. He had finished 10th in points, won at Sonoma, 6 top fives, 13 top tens. So that's the big question. Was it a one-off? Or is this team actually going to be a contender? I think we're probably in for a little bit of a regression. Like, I don't think it's going to be necessarily the breakout year we saw last year. I think at least one of them is still going to make the playoffs. Both of them made the playoffs last year. I think only one makes it this year, but I still think like they're a team that is going to be legitimate, especially if they have two good seasons in a row. I don't know who's available for 2024, but that could really open some eyes with who they might attract if they have another good season.
Yeah, so the storyline I'm watching, like, and everything is last year we saw a really big streak of dominance come from Hendrick Motorsports. I'm watching to see if they can continue that dominance that we saw from them last year and if they can actually grow upon it. I mean, this was still a team that got two drive they got, they still had drivers in the final four. And they that prior to this past year, they won the previous two championships. So they've won two of the last three championships. Can that dominance continue? Um, it looks like they're set up for it. I mean, this was a team that they decided all of a sudden they were going to go younger. They were going to go through their growing pains. And now they're coming out on the other side of those growing pains and seeing that growth and the talent that they knew they would eventually see. So can they continue to grow upon that and assert themselves fully as one of the best, if not the best team in NASCAR? So that's something I'm really keeping an eye on this year.
And then as far as my driver, that I'm looking at this year, I've got Kyle Busch moving to Richard Childress Racing. It's not that long ago that Busch was a championship contender. It was almost year in and year out. First title came in 2015. Then he finished in the top four in points from 2016 to 2018. In 2019, he won 5 races and won the title. But since 2020, he hasn't finished higher than 8th in the championship, 4 wins. I think it's change of scenery was certainly needed there. Now, it's not like he's going to a team. I didn't realize, because when I think of some of the best teams in racing, I just think back to like when I grew up, a huge fan of the sport, and you think of like Roush and Hendrick and Richard Childress and Joe Gibbs. I didn't realize that like basically all the success that Richard Childress had was with Dale Earnhardt. I thought they had like a
Mm-hmm.
few other seasons of greatness. Now, I mean, obviously, I know Kevin Harvick, I think, won a title or two with.
I think it was
No, actually, no, he didn't.
just.
He didn't
I
win a
don't think
title at all
he
because
did.
all the titles were with Dale Earnhardt. So I
Yeah,
kind of didn't realize that. I would have thought like Harvick would have slipped in at some point, but
Harvick won races for
oh
him.
yeah,
Like
oh yeah.
he won the
Well,
Brickyard for him and
and
everything
I mean,
like
it's not
that.
to say
But
that team has not been legitimate. I mean, it's been legitimate. I just realized that all the titles had been won. There hadn't been a title since like this millennium, basically. So,
Yeah.
and so it's not to say, I bring all that up not to say that like, oh, this is a big move. It means that Bush is going to be in, title contention for sure. Like he's a lock. Like that's not what I'm saying. But I do think that change of scenery. Probably the best driver they've had, at that. I mean, Austin Dillon's good, but I think probably that makes that group just all that more better. And I think it's going to be a fun team to watch going into 2023.
Yeah, for me, the driver, I mean, Kyle Busch, that's a really good one. I'm kind of looking at two drivers though that I'm really interested on opposite ends of their careers, to be honest. One, I'm looking at Austin Cindric, coming off of a pretty good rookie year. I mean,
Won the Daytona
can he,
500.
yeah,
That's a way to
that's
start your rookie. That's a way to
that's
rush
a
your.
really great way. Can he continue growing in his career and become a little bit more of I don't want to say a dominant driver. That's not what I'm looking for. More not complete, but consistent. Can you be a little bit more consistent week in and week out? I mean, obviously in racing, it's hard to do that anyways. I mean, you never know. But be a guy that can be consistent within that conversation of making a run in the playoffs and not just okay, he won the Daytona 500, he's in because of that, but somebody that can put up consistent top 15s, top 10s, be up there in the conversation uh, week after week. So I'm looking at that. Then I'm looking at Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick really kind of struggled last year. It was not the easiest of seasons for him. He has announced his upcoming retirement. I want to see, can Kevin Harvick rebound it for one last go and kind of and go out on top as a champion, or can he at least get past some of the struggles that he had last year and get back to racing the way we know Kevin Harvick can? So those are, I'm kind of, like I said, I'm looking at two guys that are on the opposite ends of their career right now, and I want to see, I'm looking for consistency out of both of them. One to show that he's growing within his career, and the other to rebound as and go out on top.
Yeah, and one way that Kevin Harvick could go out on top is winning the Daytona 500. So let's go ahead and get to our predictions here. I've got three levels of this. We're going to give our sentimental favorite, we're going to give a dark horse, and then we're going to give our winning predictions. Basically, I'll give my sentimental favorite and dark horse. B. Scott will give his, and then we'll give our winning prediction. So as far as my sentimental favorite for the Daytona 500, I've got Jimmy Johnson here. He makes a return to NASCAR in after what can only be described as a failed run in IndyCar, which is kind of sad to see. We all expected him to. We thought because of all of his enormous success that he'd had in NASCAR that it would translate at least in some way to, especially with a team like Chip Ganassi, to being at least a serviceable career in IndyCar, be at least in contention. And we've talked about it already. His one shot at the Indy 500 was not great, and only won rookie of the year because of whatever reason. Oh, he's popular, so let's give it to him. Whatever, but this is the 10th Daytona 500 since his last win in the Great American Race, 2013. So I think it'd be cool, especially because it's not only his 10th anniversary since winning the race. It's also like literally his 10th anniversary. The last time the race was on February 19th, he won the race. February 19th, 2013 is when he won. It'd be cool for his return if he won on February 19th, 2023. So my sentimental pick is Jimmy Johnson. Dark horse, I'm actually going to double down.
I will say Jimmy Johnson has to qualify.
He does.
He has to get in. So
right.
I think he can. I think he will. Will.
So that's the sentimental favorite for me. Dark horse, I'm actually going to double down. Last year, I picked Austin Cindric to win the race. This year, I'm not going to pick him to win the race, but he is my dark horse because, I mean, he did, well, for one, he came through for me last year, so I got to throw him out again this year. But also, at Daytona and Talladega, just 4 drivers had multiple top 5 finishes, and Cindric is one of those 4. This is, I mean, a track like Daytona and Talladega is so unpredictable. You can basically pick a name out of a hat, and you have just as much of a likelihood of actually picking the winner. It's not like picking other races where you can kind of see where things are going. Like it's just, and you avoid the big one, and you're in good shape. But I think that Cindric ran very well, very consistently at an inconsistent track in like Daytona. Um, he had three top 10 finishes at Daytona and Talladega in 2022, and so as inconsistent and random as Daytona and Talladega can be, I think Cindric was one of the more consistent drivers, and so I think he's kind of a dark horse to potentially double up and go back to back.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and give my sentimental favorites and favorite and dark horse now. My sentimental favorite, I'm going with Chase Elliott. He's kind of my top driver right now in the NASCAR series. Um, he hasn't had always had the best of luck at Daytona. Talladega's been more his speed, go figure. But I mean, at least He's shown that he can compete in restrictor plate races. And Hendrick Motorsports is has a history of competing within those races. Daytona is just a different animal. But I'm going. I'll say my sentimental favorite is Chase Elliott. My dark horse, I am actually going to go Bubba Wallace. I mean, this is a guy that has consistently run up front recently in restrictor plate races, whether that be at Talladega or at Daytona. He's always somebody that's kind of hanging around there. I feel like another year with this team working out more so with Denny Hamlin more. I think it it could potentially come together and we could ultimately see Bubba Wallace in victory lane at it. So I'm going with him as my dark horse pick. I think he could if there's anybody that can pull it off. I mean, I the other guy I was looking at dark horse was Daniel Suarez, just because he always seems to be there. Um, but I feel more confident with between those two. I feel more confident with Bubba Wallace.
Yeah, I mean, Bubba Wallace is a driver that I considered as well. I think he does run well there. Him and Ross Chastain also had success on restrictor plates. Was one of the races that Chastain won last year. So not at Daytona, but at Talladega. So going into the winning pick, the prediction on who we think is going to win the Daytona 500, and what I've enjoyed over the years, last couple of years, is just kind of going kooky with it, especially with this race because it's so random. Going into last year's Daytona 500, there was an even split of first-time winners and repeat winners over the last decade. The last two Daytona 500 winners have earned their first ever Cup victory at this race. Now, I know first-time champ or first-time Cup winner doesn't necessarily mean they're a rookie, but this year's rookie class doesn't really wow me except for maybe Ty Gibbs, and I mulled over picking him. But as random as Daytona races can be, the odds of seeing a third straight first-time Cup winner in the Great American Race seems pretty high. So like I said, I like going kooky with it, but I didn't want to go. I didn't feel comfortable going that kooky with it. So I think we're also due for a repeat champion. Now, Denny Hamlin is the only active full-time driver with multiple 500 wins, but he's won 3, and we've gone nearly 40 years without a 4-time Daytona 500 winner, and this is year 39 since basically it's been 39 years. So give a little hint on who I'm going to pick for the 2024 Daytona 500 if Denny Hamlin's still driving, because I think I like that 40 number a little bit better than 39. So when I was thinking about a repeat winner, I mean Joey Logano, last year's title winner, he won the Daytona 500 in 2015, and his Penske teammate did win last year. But Penske's 3 wins in the Great American Race have come exactly 7 years apart: 2008, 2015, 2022. So he's off the table. Kurt Busch isn't entered in the race, and I'm not going to go with Michael McDowell. Like I mentioned with Cindric earlier. I skipped a line in my line of thinking here. So yeah, not going Michael McDowell, not going Kurt Busch because he's not entered in the race. That leaves my pick, RCR's Austin Dillon, the 2018 Daytona 500 winner. Like I mentioned with Austin Cindric, Dillon is another driver who excelled at Daytona and Talladega last season with 2 top 5 finishes. It would be RCR's 4th 500 win, and just for more outrageousness, 2020 was the last time we saw a repeat champ in this race, and that was Joe Gibbs Racing getting their 4th win at the Daytona 500 with Denny Hamlin. So I'm going to go with Richard Childress Racing's Austin Dillon to win the Daytona 500.
That's a good pick. Yeah, I like it. I think I saw looking at Joey Logano. I think I saw a stat graphic from I think it was from NASCAR that the only the last Cup Series champion to win the Daytona 500
Dale
in the
Jarrett.
same season
Oh,
was
sorry,
Dale
not.
Jarrett.
Oh, well,
Yep.
did he win in 2000 or did he win? Because I thought he won in '99. Because I thought that's what I saw. Because I saw that in back-to-back years it happened. It won. Jeff Gordon won the '98 title, won the '99 500. Dale Jarrett won the '99 title, won the 2000 500. I thought that's how I read it. I could be
Oh, I
wrong,
thought maybe I read it
but
wrong. Maybe for some reason I thought it was the only champion to have won.
because I think Bobby Labonte won the 2000 championship.
And did he win the 2000? Like, it's not the following year. I'm saying
Right, but I'm saying that's
it's
what I thought
somebody
I saw.
to
But
have
it's
done both in the same season.
right,
So basically, what NASCAR was saying is, hey, I just because you win the Daytona 500 doesn't equate to you winning the
right.
championship that season. Um, so just the food for thought. But my pick, I am actually going with a Hendrick Motorsports car, a guy that has had quite some success in qualifying for the Daytona 500. That is the driver of the 24 car, William Byron. I think William Byron's finally going to put it together come race day. I mean, we all know he can put up the fastest laps there in qualifying and lead the pack to green. He's done it like 3 times now. I mean, it's just constantly William Byron is got the pole, or Alex Bowman, between the two of them. But I think William Byron's going to pull it off, and we're going to see the 24 machine back in victory lane at Daytona. That'd be cool.
Yeah, I mean it really would be as a Jeff Gordon fan. I always like to see the 24 in victory lane, so that's a good pick. I like it.
I like William Byron. I think he's a guy that like when he was racing Xfinity, his college. I mean, he's still I don't know if he's in college anymore, but he was racing while in college. And Liberty University was like his primary sponsor when he
Yeah.
was in the Xfinity series, and it's still on his car. Liberty is still one of his sponsors. I always thought that was really cool to be able to pull off a feat like that, to be able to do both. Because I mean, being a college student is not easy, and
No.
probably being a full time race car driver is not easy either. And combining the two, not easy
And I
at
mean, we
all.
talked about it, especially with NASCAR, the fact that there's like so many races. It'd be one thing to be in college and be an IndyCar, because like, okay, you got to race once and once in March, once in April, and then and then in the Mays here, and then you're good. But
Well, we've had Sage Karam that he left his senior prom and qualified for the Indy 500.
right,
I mean, it's possible.
it is possible. Well, everybody, enjoy the Daytona 500. It's going to be a lot of fun. The podcast will return this week. We're going to be talking about the state finals for girls basketball. It is that time already. The tournament's gone by in the blink of an eye. It's going to be a lot of fun to talk about. But until then, have a good one, everybody. Enjoy the Daytona 500.